Hi everybody, welcome to today's video. Now this is going to be very different from my usual content, okay? We're not going to be heading out and taking any photographs. We're not even going to be looking at any photographs. But what I do want to talk to you about today is photography and my photographic journey and how I've ended up with this YouTube channel. I've asked myself a lot of questions over the years, and hopefully if you ask yourself the same questions, you might learn a little bit about yourself. Everybody's got their own story about how they got into photography. This is mine. Hopefully there's something you can relate to. Let's call this Story Time with Ben Harvey. Now my friends and family, they obviously know how I got into photography, but I only share a certain amount of my private life on YouTube. I tend to just show you little bits at a time, and I share my kind of anecdotes and stories as I go along. Today's video is kind of me sharing a lot more about why I do what I do. So what sparked the idea for this video? I was driving to work and I was listening to a podcast about addiction. Now that sounds quite a heavy topic, but they were talking about social media and other things like that. And it got me thinking, could I be addicted to photography? Because the theory is you should be able to withdraw from whatever it is you feel addicted to for 30 days and you'll be okay with it. But I rarely go a week without picking up my camera, taking photographs or making a video of some sort. So by that rationale, I must be addicted to photography in some sort of level. But the whole reason I do photography is escapism. People that are new to my channel may or may not know that I'm a fully qualified architect and I spend most of my time designing buildings, which is a very rewarding job, but I need to escape from that. So when I'm not working, I pick up my camera and I go out and I take some photographs, and then I make these YouTube videos. So photography is my escapism, but I think I've definitely taken that to the next level. I have invested in too much gear. I completely obsess about taking the best possible photographs, making tutorials, making videos, and this is not just a hobby anymore, is it? I've definitely taken it a bit too far. So I think the answer would be yes, I probably am addicted to photography, because if I went an entire month without picking up my camera and taking a photograph, I would feel like somehow I've got no evidence that month existed. I probably declare that I'm a bit of a hoarder. I do like to collect things, and maybe photography is a way of just me collecting all of the sunrises. As silly as that sounds, you can't collect all of the sunrises, but I feel like I'm missing out if I see a sunrise and I don't take a photograph of it. So this might be good advice for you, but it's really advice for myself. Sometimes you've got to know when you need to put the camera down and actually just spend time with people and be present in the moment, rather than feeling like you need to capture everything. So some of you might be interested in how I actually got into photography in the first place. Now, frustratingly for me, I am not one of those people that grew up as a kid with a camera in my hand. Unfortunately, I'm very envious of those people, but there is very little evidence of me as a kid, photographically speaking. It was actually around the time that I went to university in 2002. I went to Brighton University and I studied architecture. And as a part of the process, when you design a building, you have to show others what that building looks like in context. And this is my first experience of photography. I bought myself a Canon 300D, and essentially I would take a photograph of a street scene, and then using Photoshop, I would superimpose my proposal, my design into that photograph. So from early 2000s, I was bang into digital photography and also photography manipulation. But I think, if I'm being honest with myself, back then I just enjoyed gadgets and tech. I wasn't really into photography then. I just enjoyed having cool gear and geeking out on photography. But at the time, I didn't really know how to use my camera, so I was very reliant upon it for making all the decisions. Many years passed and I continued to use that Canon 300D, taking many average photographs, but I didn't really get to grips with the camera or photography at all. Then my wife's best friend said, "Ben, I'm getting married. I would like you to take our wedding photographs." I politely said, "I think you should hire a photographer because I am an architect student and you'd be much better off with a pro." She said, "Either you take the photographs or there won't be any photographs at all." Some of you might be able to relate to this situation that we get ourselves into, and me being the person that I am, I couldn't possibly let her get married without any evidence. So I reluctantly agreed to take her photographs. And this is the turning point. This is when I really started to get into photography. I read the manual to my camera. I learned every single menu, feature, limitation of my camera. I bought books on posing people, how to understand natural light, how to use off-camera flash, the lot. I really obsessed about photography. And to cut a long story short, she never actually got married to that guy. She's happily married to somebody else, but the whole wedding was called off. And essentially about 2 years after that initial conversation, I was then left with this hobby of photography and no real purpose, which is funny because I had a target. I had something to aim for. I had done all the training, and then I was ready to photograph my first and last wedding, and then it never happened. But I am really, really glad that it happened, and I'm grateful because it has changed my life. But that is essentially how I got into photography. I was pressured into photographing a wedding that never happened. How funny is that? Skip a couple of years, I get married, we have our first child, and me being the obsessive that I am, I felt like it was now my duty to document my children's life. I've got this camera, I know how to use it, I'm going to create the best photographs of my children ever, and I'm not going to miss a moment. This hobby, this obsession just continued in an upward direction, and I was just exploring every genre. I'm doing photography for fun. I don't need to satisfy anybody. I don't need any money from it. I was literally just exploring all of the genres like portrait, macro, photographing landscapes, architecture, the lot. Did not discriminate, and that's probably why I've got such a diverse website and portfolio, because I literally just explored everything just to see what I liked. And I would still say I don't specialize in any particular genre. I am better at some things than others, but because it's a hobby, I can still just do whatever I like, and I pretty much just enjoy picking up the camera and taking photographs of most things. 2010 to 2015, I was really just exploring everything because I was really getting to grips with my camera. And because I was exploring everything, I wouldn't say I was lost, I was just enjoying the process. And it was at this point when I was interviewed by a friend and a photographer called Stephen Cotterill. Now, he had a podcast, he's stopped it now because it was taking up too much of his time, but it was called the 1-to-1, as in the numbers, 1-to-1 Photography Podcast. And I was interviewed on it. I didn't think I was worthy. I still don't think I'm worthy, and I've never listened to it, and I don't want to listen to it. But there is an interview on his podcast with me, and he asked some very good questions. And the important thing about this podcast is he always opens it with, "Who is Ben Harvey?" And what you have to do in a strange sort of third person, talk about yourself. But I'd never at that point asked myself why I take photographs. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, I've had a child, so I'll take pictures of my children. That's an obvious thing to do. But you could take pictures of your children with a point and shoot or your mobile phone. You don't have to invest in thousands of pounds worth of incredible gear, portrait lenses, to take pictures of your baby. So why? If you've never asked yourself why, and you're into photography, and you are really into photography, and this is your hobby, you spend your free time, if you ever get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go out and shoot a sunrise, you need to ask yourself why you do it. Just so that you understand for your own benefit when you should stop or when you should do more. Once you get to the bottom of why you do something, I think it's healthier, and it's just you're in a better situation. And because I was asked this question in the interview, I now know the answer. It's escapism. The reason I go out and take landscape photographs more than most genres is because it gets me out of the house. It helps me escape, and the camera is just an excuse. If I didn't have a camera, I wouldn't get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go out into the woods and just watch the sun come up. It just wouldn't happen. If I didn't have a camera, I probably wouldn't have visited the same places that I've been on holiday. I wouldn't have gone to Australia, I wouldn't have gone to Morocco, I wouldn't have gone to Egypt. It's having a camera that gave me that reason and that purpose to go to these locations. Most of my YouTube landscape videos I would never have visited had I not had a camera with me. For me, the camera is just an excuse to go out, and it gives me motivation. And finally, how did I end up with this YouTube channel? Well, I was going out taking photographs for years and years before I started making any videos. And when you show somebody a beautiful sunrise or a sunset picture, people would say, that's beautiful. But most of the time there was a really good story that went along with that was missing, and it doesn't really show you when you present a photograph, it doesn't really show how much effort you went through to get that. When you make a video about the story that goes along with it, you can show them, this is my 7th attempt to get this. I've been rained on, I've had to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to this location, the tides were all wrong. Sometimes the journey and the story is actually more interesting than the photograph. Essentially, I just like creating things. And if I were to go out at sunrise and the weather conditions are rubbish, therefore don't get any good photographs, I could still make a good video about that location, even if the photographs are no good. And therefore I still feel content because I've created something. I've created a video, even though the conditions were no good. YouTube also makes you very accountable. If you want to teach somebody photography, and sometimes I don't feel like I am good enough to be teaching people because I make stupid mistakes all the time. Sometimes that makes good content, sometimes it does not. Teaching stuff to people on the internet is one way of forcing yourself to be better, because people anonymously on the internet will call you out and say, I disagree with you, you're wrong, you're rubbish, you're not doing this properly. I enjoy that challenge. That is the main reason why I make YouTube tutorials. First of all, it's challenging, plus it's very rewarding, because if I can teach you and inspire you to go out with your camera, create some images, that makes me feel good. I make more of them, everybody wins. And that is how I've ended up here. So if you have not yet asked yourself the question why you're into photography, then you need to. Because I think once you understand why you pick up a camera in your free time, that will help you understand why you might photograph a particular genre of photography, why you might want to collaborate with others, or why you might want to be on your own photographing the stars at night. I think once you understand that, this beautiful hobby that is photography will be a lot more rewarding. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. It's been fun to make, and you probably know a bit more about me than you knew before. Likewise, if during this video you now have an epiphany and you think, oh, I actually know why I'm into photography now, let me know in the comments below, because I'd like to get to know my audience as well. Otherwise, normal content will resume in the next video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.